Good morning, Daphne.
Good
Happy
morning, Bessemer.
Galentine's Day,
Thank
Daphne.
you so much. Happy Galentine's Day to you too.
And happy Sunday. And to all of our viewers and our friends, this is our Sunday Seedlings. This is our episode where we do a 10-minute health snack. And if you've missed previous episodes, please go ahead onto our website. It's actually perfectlyplanted22.com. That is our blog. You can also find us on Facebook at Perfectly Planted and on Instagram, which is at It's Perfectly Planted. So would love your support and following us along. And you could view these podcasts or broadcasts then. So anyway, Daphne, this episode is around loving more, how appropriate it is being February, Heart Month, Valentine's Day. I mean, Super Bowl, let's just kind of put that off to the side. But we do, I think it's really important. It's one of our 10 principles for our Perfectly Planted guiding principles. And I think that it's an important topic for us to cover today.
I think so too. First of all, you look lovely in red. So
you do too.
Thank you.
Heart Month.
So we do want to talk about loving more, and not only because it's one of our principles, and we will weave in a little bit about how this ties to not only your physical heart, but your metaphorical. What does, researching for today's conversation, I actually had to think about what is love? Where was the origin of Valentine's Day? And it was very stimulating to me to think about all these different things. And more importantly, what does it mean to love yourself?
That's right. And I think that's really where it starts, So again, like we said, it's Heart Month, it's Valentine's Day, but loving yourself is really where it starts. Mm-hmm. So becoming your best, how do you become your best self, or having, the best, loving yourself and really being able to love others starts really within. And I will say that, too often, we really put other things at the forefront, as opposed to really just kind of digging in and into ourselves and inward and making sure that we are happy in order for us to love others more. And it's also loving ourselves in multiple ways. So loving ourselves, with proper nutrition, proper just, mental mindset, in order for us to really be our best and to give our best. So I think that, it's definitely time for people, especially those who spend so much time giving back to their community and putting work first before themselves, and their family too. I think that's all important, but definitely taking that step to really dedicate some time to yourself is extremely important in order for you to love more.
And how do you do that? I mean, I'll be honest with you. So, I'd like to just dig deep into a couple of comments you made. One is, you're a mom, you're a working mom, you're a wonderful wife. How do you find time to love you? Question number one. Question number two, I want to say, as women, that we tend to just, I don't want to say very easily put everyone before we put ourselves. But how I often think about the phrase, you need to put on your own oxygen mask first. And so when you think about loving yourself, how do you carve out time amongst all the things that are important, all the things that other people are looking for you to do, to take that deep breath and make sure that you're putting on your own oxygen mask so that you can love others more?
Yeah. So for me, it'll probably be different for everybody. So everybody has to define that for themselves. But specifically for me, I mean, you've been part of my journey, my health and wellness journey, Daphne. And I was at a point back in, what was it? 2017, when I came to you and I said, I just really need to get myself back, either at the gym or just to feel better about myself. And so it kind of started there. And since then, I dedicate time every single morning to working out. That is my start of the day. That is my time Oftentimes I keep my phone in that, a phone pocket on your your leggings, and try not to look at it that much because I really want to focus on that workout. And that's really that's my time to myself. Another time is really when I wake up. I think it's really important for me to start my day with the proper mindset.
Yep.
And so, in order for me to love more, I have to be in that right mind. And so gratitude and being grateful and identifying just a couple things, 2 to 3 of things that I'm grateful for. And I was just reading an article earlier this morning, actually during my workout, and it was around how somebody just misses those ordinary days where they had kids and it was just nothing planned, or maybe there are just that morning routine and what she would give for another one of those ordinary days. And it actually hit home because
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes try and make these amazing experiences for our family and our children. And it's really, you just have to be present and you have to be loving. And where I'm going with that is that those ordinary days are what, one of the things that I'm grateful for. But starting my day out with a grateful heart allows me to really be able to give that kindness, sprinkle
Mm-hmm.
kindness to other people, because I think that not everybody will start their day that way. So that was
Thanks
a
for sharing.
long-winded answer. How about that, Daphne? How do you start? How about you?
No, and it's, as I was listening to you, I was thinking about the ordinary days when, particular, my mom and dad were alive, and I don't think, I don't think we realize the love that we have for people until they're not with us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the simple things about, waking up on a Sunday morning and going down for breakfast and spending time with mom or dad. Um, I have adopted some of the same things as you have. And I'll be honest with you, this is all, it's been evolving for me. So learning how to carve out that time, the gym time for me is sacred.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy when you do it at 5 o'clock in the morning because no one else is going to be calling you around then.
Mm-hmm.
But, blocking out that time is important.
Mm-hmm.
I've started doing the same thing before I get out of bed. I try and think about what are my intentions for the day. And not necessarily what's on my schedule, but really what are my intentions? How do I want to bring myself to that day, to bring myself to others? And then I also have to look inside because I'm not always a good person. I've hurt people over the course of my life. So I also need to understand, how do I become a better person so I can love more?
Yeah.
Um,
And we're all a work in progress. So
I
I
would
think
agree.
and that actually brings up another point I think you made earlier to me on when we were chatting prior to going live is, it's that vulnerability. So knowing and realizing that, we are all a work in progress, but also the fact that, you know, it's
Mhm.
always a step in the right direction. As long as we're going a step in the right direction and being a little bit more vulnerable, sharing your feelings with the people then. And I think too often times, I'll stop for a second and tell you that sometimes, you think about somebody and when you're explaining, like if I were to talk to you about my best friend, do I say those words directly to her? And oftentimes we don't, and we need
Yeah.
to.
Yep.
And I think that those are some of the things that, I would like to do more, and just share more. And that kindness and the true feelings that you have for the people that you love, to share that is so important. And it's interesting because you want to just write it, and because it may just be too vulnerable for you to like talk through it. But I would love, one of my goals is to be able to verbalize and talk through those directly to the person that I love.
I know, but and I shared this quote from Brene Brown, who I love, um, because to your point about vulnerability, when you let someone know you love them, you also have to open yourself up to disappointment, to hurt. And none of us I mean, it's easier to put that bubble around, that shield on, and say, I don't want to let people in. I need that protection so I don't risk getting hurt. But
That's right.
it's often easier to display that vulnerability and to let people know what's important, and that they're important to you, because you never know when you lose that opportunity.
That's right. So switching gears, being Heart Month,
Yes.
it's so important. I know you have a few facts to share with us on heart disease in general.
I do. And I know we're coming already to the top of our 10
I know we
minutes,
could talk forever.
we can't believe. But I did want to share with anyone who's taking time to tune in today. This is American Heart Month. And we're talking about the physical, the emotional, the spiritual. And that's really a lot of what we're hoping to share with you on our journey with Perfectly Planted. But more than 600,000 Americans every year die from heart disease. And heart disease affects people of all ages, of all genders, of all ethnicities. It affects every group. And the risk factors include things like high cholesterol, high blood pressure, smoking, diabetes, excessive alcohol use. But these are all things that are related to lifestyle. One of the things that we have been trying to share over the past year is that your genetics are not your destiny, but your environment, your lifestyle can really dictate how you meet life and the opportunities you have to be better stewards of your health. So a lot of the guiding principles of Perfectly Planted were really trying to talk about how you keep your heart healthy, not just from a physical perspective of actively taking a role in reducing your risk of heart disease by having a healthy plant-forward diet, by engaging in physical activity, by knowing your numbers and managing your cholesterol, your high blood pressure, but also focusing on those things that are socially, emotionally important, because they are as important to your heart health, as we've learned from the Blue Zones, as anything that we can do by being physically active in the gym.
That's right. Those centenarians are amazing. And it is a culture. It's embedded in their culture also. And like you mentioned, the lifestyle is a big part of it. And so, how can we reposition and focus where a long week and wanting to feel accepted or wanting to feel loved doesn't necessarily have to be, doing things that may not serve your body best, and whatever those are. But, it's about, making sure that you tune into really what's needed for you and living your best life socially, mentally, physically. So.
And we know those loving relationships, and Dan Buettner has written about them extensively, and all of the things he's written about on the Blue Zones. And we'll be sure to put some of these references on the show notes, but they are associated with being longer lived, with having better health habits, with increasing your longevity, with lowering your stress.
Yeah.
It's amazing the important things that can come with having those loving relationships and social connections, in addition to the fact that giving love can also be important to helping those that we love have better lives.
Right. Oh, I agree. I love that. Daphne, we are at our time for our little health snack of loving more. We could talk about love for hours.
We could. And we have a lot of topics coming up that in 10 minutes seems to go so fast, but our goal is to stimulate the conversation. Bessamy and I don't have the answers. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about these topics, so we want to share with you. But thank you so, so much for allowing us to be part of your health journey. We hope you'll join us for our next Sunday Seedling, where we'll talk about stress. And we both know a lot about stress, but we'll just share a couple of points we have on tips on how to reduce stress in your life. And we want to hear from you. So whether you DM us on Instagram, whether you put comments on today's Sunday Seedling, we want to hear more about what we can share with you as we have been exploring this myriad of topics on how to be healthy, how to live healthier lives. But thanks for being part of the journey. Take care. And until next time, be well.